Newsmax TV coverage of America Votes 2016 Super Duper Tuesday continues. I'm J.D. Hayworth on the anchor desk, and joining us now via Skype from Mesa, Arizona, the editor of Politistic.com, Jennifer Burke. Likewise, staying with us via telephone from Connecticut, Newsmax TV political analyst Dick Morris. Dick, the situation that develops tonight, it would appear, and yes, we have to see what happens with the numbers in the Midwest, and things have tightened up in North Carolina, but any way you slice it, it is a big victory for Donald Trump in Florida. But Dick, even if he wins elsewhere, because now that Kasich has taken Ohio, it's still a tough path to pick up all the delegates. So what happens after tonight in your estimation, Dick Morris?
Well, of course, that all completely depends on what goes on in the other states. Now, at the moment, with 34% of the vote in, Trump is 4 points ahead of Cruz in North Carolina. If Trump wins North Carolina, and he wins Missouri, and he wins Illinois, and of course he's won Florida, I think at that point he's demonstrating a capacity to win all over, and I'm not sure he can be defeated. But those are big ifs at this point. Those states are still very much out and very much in play. And I can't emphasize the importance of those states. Florida was important because it knocked Rubio out. And it's 100 delegate votes, lump sum, that's important. Ohio was important because it showed vulnerability by Trump. The race was normally a tie between Kasich and Trump previously, and now Kasich has gone out to a 10-point margin. That was very significant. And now we need to look at those other three states. It's too early to call this a good night or a bad night for Donald Trump. It's either going to be a great night or a horrible night, depending on how those three states go, if they, in fact, go the same way.
And let me head out west.
What you can say, though, is that I think the Bernie Sanders surge has probably run its course.
Well, let me turn now to Jennifer Burke, joining us via Skype from out in my old stomping grounds in Arizona. Jennifer, as you look back eastward to what has happened tonight, now with John Kasich winning Ohio and all of that state's delegates, even with that victory, is it fair to ask why Kasich would stay in the race, or do you expect the GOP establishment now to rush to Kasich since Rubio has departed the scene?
You know, I think it's fair to ask, even with Kasich winning Ohio, why he's staying in the race. Even though polls showed him neck and neck with Donald Trump previous, and Donald Trump has been attacking him hard in Ohio at the rallies there, I just don't see this swinging Kasich to these phenomenal victories in other states like he's hoping that it will. I mean, perhaps it will, but he's still so far behind in the delegate count. I don't see it having that kind of impact. Kudos to him, though, for winning his states. You have Ted Cruz that won his state of Texas and Kasich that won his state of Ohio. Unfortunately for Rubio, all the polls showed he was behind by double digits, Trump, and that's where he ended up the night.
And that's all she wrote for Marco Rubio and his presidential campaign here in 2016. Jennifer, looking ahead, for the sake of argument, Kasich stays in. Is he a viable vice presidential choice for Donald Trump? Or if Kasich stays in, he turns up the rhetoric now and becomes more critical of the front runner?
You know, I was listening to an interview with Kasich earlier today, and he said, no, I would never, ever, ever be a running mate of Donald Trump. But, they say that, just like Rubio said, he wouldn't suspend his campaign. They end up doing so. He might be, bringing him Ohio, especially, he beat Donald Trump by 10 points in Ohio. I'm sure that was a shocker to the Trump campaign since they thought it would be a much closer race. I don't see Kasich turning up the rhetoric. If he does, it'll be even less disingenuous, or even more disingenuous, rather, than Marco Rubio doing so, because he has said so many times that's not the kind of campaign I'm going to run. So I don't see him doing that. But I do, and a lot of other people think, regardless of what he says, that he's still in the race of hopes of getting that VP slot.
Let me turn to Dick Morris. Politics is a funny business, and minds can change seemingly in the blink of an eye. Dick Morris, the viability of John Kasich for vice president, even with his win tonight in Ohio, is it too soon to be talking about the number 2 spot?
Yeah, I think it is. I think that if Donald Trump is the nominee, nobody is going to tell him who to name for vice president. He's going to do his own choosing, and it'll be based on his own criterion. At this point, I don't think you have enough of a split in the Republican ranks to say that you sell off the vice presidency in order to get the nomination. It would have to be a great deal more fractured than it is right now. At the moment, you have Trump leading in 4 of the 5 primaries. If he wins 4 of the 5 primaries, he doesn't have to make a deal with anybody to get the nomination. He just walks in, and vice president is whoever he damn well wants it to be.
And a guy who usually we see here at 9 o'clock in the East, Dennis Michael Lynch, joins us from Newsmax, New York. DML, thanks for lending your time to election coverage tonight. You have to be gratified with what you saw Donald Trump do tonight in Florida.
I'm thrilled, JD. I'm thrilled. And before we get into that, let me just tell a couple of things to people who chime in here every night at 9 o'clock. Obviously, it's another Super Tuesday, and we're bringing you special live coverage from my news desk here in New York and from our studios in Battleground, Florida. That said, tomorrow night, I'll be back here at 9 p.m. Eastern with a regularly scheduled Dennis Michael Lynch Unfiltered. And so you should set your DVRs now, because we will be celebrating and analyzing all the Donald Trump victories from today. And I love Donald. Plus, we'll also be breaking a story, JD, that nobody else is talking about, which is the veteran suicide rate. It's being reported now for weeks and months that it's 22 per day. But I've been looking into this from an investigative standpoint, and I will be revealing that that number is much higher, and I'll tell you why tomorrow night. Plus, we'll be bringing you another unfiltered DML investigation that shows you just how much money you, as an individual, pay to support the illegal aliens who invade our country. We've got these stories and much more, so again, set those DVRs for 9 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night. Exclusively here at Newsmax TV is Dennis Michael Lynch Unfiltered. Now, that said, although I'll be here with you for most of this hour, I am going to sit back and play analyst while our Florida studios does the whole mission control thing. And J.D. Hayworth, who is got probably the single best vocabulary in the country, often leaving me scrambling for a dictionary, he's going to play quarterback for the hour. So, J.D., I'm handing it back to you, pal.
And we thank you very much, DML, and I know what to get you for Christmas, a thesaurus. So that'll be good, but we'll build word power together. And right now, it's not so much words as it is numbers as we continue the discussion with Newsmax TV political analyst Dick Morris via telephone, Jennifer Burke from Mesa, Arizona, and of course, our friend DML at Newsmax, New York. Dick, we are taking a look at the numbers in Missouri and North Carolina, and that margin between Donald Trump and Ted Cruz continues to grow tighter. Obviously, Cruz hopes to exploit what he said was going to be a surge in some of these states. Right now, it looks to be about a 5-point cushion in the Show Me state of Missouri, and things likewise are tight in the Tar Heel state. Which state do you believe is the most likely for a Cruz breakthrough tonight, Dick?
Well, the polling would suggest that it's Illinois most likely, Missouri next, and North Carolina least. But the North Carolina result should be heartening to Trump because he now has 36% of the vote in. That's the first of these returns that really has a significant vote in, and he's doing and he's 5 points ahead of Cruz. That could be called in the next few minutes, which would be a disaster for Cruz and a tremendous win for Trump. In Missouri, you have 3% in, and which is still way early, and there's a 6-point lead for Trump, but I wouldn't credit it as important. But in Illinois, there is something happening that is important. Cruz and Kasich are more or less getting the same vote, and while it's only 3% in at this point, that's very important. Because if Kasich genuinely is making Illinois a 3-way race, then Donald will walk off with it and win that. It's important to understand that from now on, the Republican primaries are winner take all or winner take most. And if you have Kasich draining votes from Cruz, Trump is going to walk off with all of those states, just like it looks like he may walk off with Illinois tonight.
JD, let me say something to what's going on. We could look at these numbers back and forth. I think ultimately what's going to happen is Ted Cruz is going to come to the same realization that Marco Rubio has come to, and that is second place is the first loser. President Trump, get ready to start saying it. President Trump. He is going to just run the rest of these primaries, and he is going to wipe Hillary Clinton off the map. It will be one of those elections that they'll be talking about 200 years from now will all be long gone. And thank goodness, because Donald Trump is coming into this country at a time of when it is falling off the cliff. President Barack Hussein Obama has fundamentally transformed this country, and we need the bull in the China cabinet named Donald Trump to knock a lot of things over, use tough love, and get this country back on track. I have been saying it for months, and I am happy today.
Well, let me turn to Jennifer Burke out in Mesa, Arizona. When you hear DML mention this, it sounds as if Donald Trump has a spot in the electorate and perhaps in history as the anti-Obama. Is that what is helping Mr. Trump?
Well, I think as far as just boisterousness and just telling it like it is, he is the anti-Obama. I mean, Obama had high rhetoric, when he was campaigning, but we've watched him campaign around the world throughout his presidency and apologizing for America, which has nothing to apologize at the level that Obama is saying that. But I tell you what, when I hear Donald Trump say things, and I know some of his supporters think this is great, we have people on our page that say, hey, he might be a dictator, but at least he'd be a dictator on our side. He said he'd continue with the executive orders, that it's a great thing. Will there be a President Trump? I don't know. Polls show him, most of the polls, except the ones Trump cites, show him actually not beating Hillary. But, we'll see if that's the case. You know me, JD, I have a big problem because I don't feel like I can trust more than half of what Donald Trump says. So we'll see. Whether people be talking about it in 200 years, probably so. People are talking about it now because he's probably the most well-known presidential candidate ever from having been on The Apprentice for so many years. So yeah, people probably will be talking about this particular race for more reason than one, but that being one of them.
Well, let's turn to Dick Morris because we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but DML is already using the honorific President Trump. Yet, Dick, it's still a long way to the Republican nomination, and we're still waiting for a couple of states tonight, and a lot of the establishment folks try to make the case that Trump cannot get to the 1,237 delegates needed for the nomination. How do you see this coming down tonight? What are the two competing scenarios in your mind?
Well, so far Trump is really doing well. He's won Florida, lost Ohio. In North Carolina, he's holding a 5-point lead with almost 40% of the vote in. That'll be ready to be called for Trump very soon. In Missouri, he's only 6 ahead, but with only 4% counted. Anything could happen there. But in Illinois, Kasich and Cruz are running neck and neck, splitting the vote against Trump, which means Trump now has a significant lead. And given the viability Kasich is showing in Illinois, it's unlikely, in my judgment, that Cruz will be able to overtake Trump. In fact, the results now are 41-24 for Kasich, 23 for Cruz, with 10% reporting. It basically means that you can probably at this point put North Carolina and Illinois in the Trump column. That means that you at least have nominee Trump. My worry, Dennis, is not the question of President Trump. It's a phrase we may not have to learn merely to remember. It might be President Clinton.
I couldn't hear what Dick said. What did he say, JD?
Well, he was saying that certainly if, and it looks right now as if Donald Trump can prevail in Illinois, in part because the anti-Trump vote is being split down the middle between Cruz and Kasich. Trump in Illinois, Trump probably in Missouri. So what you're saying in terms of nominee Trump may in fact come to pass, but he's worried about the phrase re-entering our lexicon, two words joined together as in President Clinton. So I guess it's fair to ask DML, how does Donald Trump defeat Hillary?
Listen, you're always going to have the people on the right who are going to vote for the right just because it's the right. And then you've got the people on the left who are going to do the same thing. So when you go back and you take a look at the middle, most of those people are going to ask themselves two questions. Who is going to put more money in my pocket, or at least give me the opportunities to do that? And who is going to keep my children and my grandchildren and myself safe? And when they sit down and they do the analysis of that, I am more than confident that the person who sits in the middle is going to look at Donald Trump and say, this is my guy. There's no way Hillary can do this for me. I truly believe, not only just based on my own thoughts and my gut, but through all the conversations I have with people, which happens every day, JD, I talk to people on the left, I talk to people on the right, and I talk to a ton of people in the middle. I never hear anybody say Hillary Clinton. I hear a lot of people say, I'm not crazy about some of the things that Donald Trump says, but ultimately, I think we do have to stop taking in so many of these Muslims just for a while anyway. Or they say, you know what, I haven't had a raise in 6 or 7 years, and I think Trump's going to be able to bring back better jobs, and he's going to bring it back from China. He has a far better message. And if he could just maybe, I don't know, be a carpenter and just smooth over the edges a bit, he's going to run away with this. It's not even going to be fun. He's going to run away with it so much.
I have not had the chance to get the perspective of Jennifer Burke on what I'll call the gender question. Let's face it, Hillary is out there every step of the way saying she can be the first woman president. Do you think the gender question and the fact that if she gets the Democrat nomination, becoming the first woman president is enough to pry off enough independent female votes for her to prevail in a general election, Jennifer?
I think if she could have prevailed just by being the first female president, the Democrats wouldn't have dropped her like a hot potato for Barack Obama, believing that they could push the first black president and accusing people of being racist who didn't support him over the first female president. Now, for those of you, as a black woman, I want to say right now, I did not vote for Obama in 2008. I did not vote for Obama in 2012. I didn't buy the lines that he was selling any more than I buy Hillary. And Hillary's biggest problem is, as much as I did not like Obama, he did connect with people. She can't connect with people. Her numbers actually with women really aren't that great. And the fact that millennials really feel absolutely no connection to her doesn't really bode well for her either. I don't see them rallying around Clinton like they did Obama, because you can destroy their whole narrative of I'm for women by just looking at the involvement that she had in the whole Nuts and Sluts campaign to discredit Bill Clinton's accusers and victims. So I don't see them helping her at all.
JD, I have a question for Dick Morris.
Okay, go ahead.
Dick Morris and I have talked about this many a times on Unfiltered. My concern has never been, will Donald Trump win the GOP nomination? He's going to win it hands down. Sooner or later, the GOP establishment is just going to have to put down its guns and realize the fact that if it doesn't get behind Trump, Hillary will be the president. My bigger concern, Dick, is it too late for Mike Bloomberg to jump in this race as an independent and play complete spoiler for Trump and hand the election to Hillary Clinton?
30 seconds to answer that, Dick. You got 30 seconds.
No, it's not too late. He could. But my bet is that as long as Hillary is beating Sanders, Bloomberg won't come in because he needs both parties to have dissatisfied voters. If it were Trump against Sanders, he could do it. But Trump against Clinton, he probably couldn't.
Well, we will see what transpires as we see pictures of yet another billionaire, the former mayor of New York City, Michael Bloomberg. It is worth noting that the last scenes we saw of Hillary were from her victory statement tonight. We'll spare you some of those comments because at times they just a bit too strident for our ears. But we will be all ears and all eyes as we return with our panel, Dick Morris, Dennis Michael Lynch, and Jennifer Burke, to talk about the results thus far and what is yet to come on this super duper Tuesday. You're watching Newsmax TV coverage of America Votes 2016. You see the numbers from Florida where Donald Trump prevailed. We're waiting for the front runner to come out and address the media. We'll go there, but right now we'll step aside.